So our younger, more dedicated coaches were here at 5 this morning.
How about the coaches? Are the players adjusting to waking up earlier?
Ask them. We'll see.
How's the retention level when you get them for the first time?
Seems okay so far.
Is everybody on the depth chart listed here dressing Friday?
I believe so, yeah. I mean, it's always, well, with school not in place, that's one less thing that could happen, but as of today, that's the depth chart. We'll see how it ends up by the time we play.
Thoughts on the captains and just having them be named and who ended up being the captains?
Yeah, our captains for this year defensively, Remington Peck and Craig Bills. Offensively, Taysom Hill and Paul Lasike. And so Paul has made a really rapid ascent in our program, from not knowing the rules to now being a captain. Remington has been a product of the program, has tried really hard, and Craig and Taysom I don't think surprised anyone in terms of the number of votes they got. So we have special teams captains in place as well as leadership council members, and did not bring that list, so I'd forget someone if I tried to name it off to you. But if you contacted Brett, he could get that to you.
Remington mentioned that two of the guys are more the vocal guys in Craig and Taysom, and then you've got, he said he and Paul are a little more on the quiet side, more that lead by hard work and example. You see the same thing?
Yeah, I think it's kind of head coach / football ops relationship where one's more visible, but doesn't mean it's more valuable. And so I think it's probably like that.
You decided to announce it on Saturday night. Is that when the first time you'd announced it?
I did announce it Saturday night. I wasn't planning to, but since Craig was there, I announced him, which then just kind of led into an impromptu announcing of the other captains. And so, yeah, this is the first time, I think, maybe to official media that we've done it.
Bronco, are you consciously loosening up and showing more of your personality?
Does it show?
It does to me.
I'm glad. Working hard at it. I prefer it this way. Having been the defensive coordinator, even on game day, just the way that I'm built, really hard to pay attention to anything else other than what's the next play, what's the coordinator thinking, what situation to be ready for. And when I become that focused, hard to really interact with anybody. Now that those things have been delegated, player relationships is really something I found that as a position coach I really enjoyed. As the head coach, I haven't been able to get that as much, and really it's there for me as long as I've structured it correctly. So as long as Nick does a great job with the defense, Robert with the offense, and Kelly with the special teams, and I hope I can be more of myself, or more of a different version of myself without as much play calling responsibility.
With that decision to go, the delegation route, is it more kind of how Lavelle seemed to handle it? Because that seems to be how he did it. I don't know if you talked to him about it or anything.
I really haven't. He advised me really early on to not coordinate one side or the other, and I think that's maybe what he had learned over time as he was a coordinator and then became the head coach. But really the competitive work is actually playing the game, and so until you feel like the coaching and that can be given to someone that will do a phenomenal job with the competitive work, hard to give that up. And so Nick has been with me 9 years now, and if anyone knows me and how I would like it done, I think it's him, and has a personality similar. So I kind of feel liberated to some extent. Hopefully it all plays out that way and we perform well so it can keep going in this direction.
How instructive is last year's season opener at Virginia relative to how to get ready for and win this one?
I think all those. Any loss to me has more value than a win. The lessons they hurt, and they're applied usually faster. Always difficult to tell exactly where you are going into the opener. I was shocked that we didn't score a bunch of points in our opener last year based on how our offense had moved it against our defense. And so I think I'm more cautious, if anything, and maybe less accepting of exactly what I see and then trying to predict, what will that really look like. But the opener, there's always uncertainty, and I think that's the takeaway. There is uncertainty in the opener. I didn't think there was much a year ago, and there ended up being a lot.
How do you assess UConn right now?
Hard to say. They finished on a strong note in winning, putting a nice streak together at the end of their season. Brand new staff, both sides. What that will look like in terms of chemistry, in terms of effort, in terms of what they do with personnel, even with schemes, hard to know. So that makes me more reserved also in terms of predicting the opener. So certainly capable. I've seen their personnel, it's certainly capable. What the team will look like, I think the focus has to go more back to us because we can control that. I'm not quite sure what we'll see from them.
What kind of camp did Jordan Johnson have? What do you expect from him this season?
So Jordan has taken a long road back through his ACL, and a lot of times when the ACL comes back, physically it's ready, but then mentally to be able to trust it, plan off of it, and believe that it's actually back, that's much more difficult. And so it's taken Trent, who had his hurt earlier, I'd say even to the last 8 days where I've really seen him have confidence in it. I'd say Jordan is still probably a week behind what Trent was. However, good news is we've had it tested and it's beyond where it was before it was hurt. And so now it's just adjusting back to it's really okay. A brace sometimes affects you either subliminally or physically, and so getting used to playing in a brace is different. I think ultimately by the end of the season, he'll end up having a fantastic year. How fast? Hard to predict that part.
We didn't see him or Robertson Daniel run with the ones in any scrimmages or whatever. How do you kind of explain all of a sudden they're number one on the depth chart?
They're really good players, and they're really experienced players. And so, again, anything that happens internally in the program, I don't always share, as you know, and so that's the way I plan to keep it.
Do you expect both of them to start against UConn?
I would love them both to be able to start.
You're going to take your team east so many times this year. Are there any advantages to getting out of town, maybe limiting distractions and getting them to spend some quality time together?
There hasn't been many distractions through fall camp because school's not in session. When school starts, that's quite a bit different. So the only advantage really of going early is just it's a long ways. And again, having traveled a year ago, if I would have done it differently and could have, probably would have done it a day earlier.
How did the UConn series get set up?
I don't remember. In our attempt to have regional games or games in every region of the country, that made sense to us. Originally, I was after Syracuse and would love to have had that as an opener with some of the church history things built in and going a day early. Anyway, it started with Syracuse, then we started looking for who else around there. That's about all I remember. And I'm not sure when they come back. It might be next year, or I haven't looked ahead that far.
You guys will travel 22,000 miles, I think, more than maybe any other school but Hawaii and one other.
Idaho's next.
Yeah. Is that something you'll come to expect, like you said, playing in every region?
And I think as an independent, what I want is to play the best teams with the most exposure on the biggest stages and as many as we can play. And so we're willing to travel to do it. Still struggling to get people to come here. They like neutral sites, but coming to Provo isn't so appealing for them. And so under our current circumstances, to play our way into national prominence and consideration under the new alignments, I think it's a necessity.
How are you managing Bronson Kafusi's reps? Do you feel like he's gotten enough, Coach, to be ready for UConn?
I don't think he's gotten enough, but we've loaded him as hard as we could once he showed back up for practice. New position and very few live looks against our offense, so he knows his assignments. That's different than the reactions and the speed in which they come. So I would have liked to have him a week earlier.
Well, I saw that Aleto's starting at center. Nobody wants to talk about the offensive line, but I'm speaking. I saw he's starting at center, but I know Coroma's had a really good camp and has gotten a lot of starting reps. Is that what we're expecting as UConn?
I would. So again, from whenever I approved that, which I don't remember when I approved it, there's a very good chance it could have changed already. And so the chance that T-John isn't the starting center probably will be. So it might change again tomorrow or the next day. We've got 2 more practices.
I think 4 of the 5 offensive line positions are listed as so-and-so or so-and-so. Is that just because the battles are so tight? Or
It actually is, and it's not my ideal. I'd rather have not the or. What's the anti-or? Just I'd rather have 1 deep than 2 deep, put it that way, but we have 2 deep and an or right now. So I'd love one of those ors or 2 or 3 to come off by Friday, if possible. So again, I'd be leery of the 2 deep and say, man, that's Monday's depth chart, the 25th. I'm not promising that's going to be Friday night's depth chart.
Will the 10 offensive linemen all travel that are listed on the depth chart?
Yeah.
So at least that's set.
And hopefully I can get that down to about 8 once a couple of those ors go off, because I don't think we need 10. I hope we don't.
You want to travel the backup deep snapper?
It'd be nice.
In regards to Paul Lasike, what attributes make him such a great teammate and leader?
Oh, he's just all work, and he's really humble. The one thing that he and Josh Whippy have in common, our other rugby player, they're so humble and appreciative. And there's not the cultural element of expectation from our United States recruits and who have gone through the process and have had others wanting them. I mean, they're used to hitting each other with no pads and riding buses to games and having a sack lunch. It's refreshing.
I know you work really close with your nose tackles. Missing one in particular that we kind of heard about. How do you feel that Tuiloma, and how do you feel about the depth at the nose tackle spot against UConn?
I feel good. Travis is really good, and will probably play. I would say Logan Teale would get some work there too. He's a good player. He could play both.
UConn has been to a BCS bowl game. Their basketball teams are nationally champions. Do you feel a kind of a kindred spirit with them as far as now they can't play the Power 5 teams and or they can, but you know what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I think anyone I think we're calling it the Group of 5 now. We're not even in the Group of 5. And I prefer that because really we're not in the Group of 5. We're alone. But there is some similarity in that those with money, and that is the difference. Those with money, even though they're not fiscally responsible in terms of how they're managing their budget, knowing that less than 25 are in the black of all Division I programs, which makes no sense to me that money's driving it and the money can't be managed that they already have. But that is the differentiator. And I'm open for any kind of challenge regarding that. However, so now because of money and the lack of fiscal responsibility to spend it wisely, to now say that you can't play them, we're trying to play as many as we can, more than we've ever played before in the history of the school, almost double that of what my predecessors have played at BYU, and I think that's our only way in. And so if the budget isn't going to change and the revenue's not going to change, maybe wins on the scoreboard will change something.
How well do you know Coach Diaco?
I don't. I've never met him, and just know him by reputation. I think he's done a really good job at Notre Dame with their defense. It was fun watching them, and we studied some of their film. They weren't identical to us, but they were a 3-4 team, and I think they played well.
Have you changed a lot of things over the years, the way you prepare your team and the way you make the road trip when you're taking such a long one? Or?
Yeah, and I'm never positive if it's the right one. I try not to match it for best practices, what we've done before, but what's going to fit this team. And sometimes those two things are different. But I feel good about where we are, and gosh, just got to play. And once we play, I'll know more. You'll all know more once we play. So I'm not sure what else I can tell you up to this point.
Did you have fun Saturday night responding to some of your players'
Yeah, were you there?
No.
So I've never stayed. I normally go in, do my thing, and get out because that's just what I've done. And thinking about actually the strategic part of the game, and that doesn't mean I don't know what UConn does offensively and defensively. I have a really good idea. But it's nice to be able to stay and interact and just be part of things in a different light than what I have been before. And I hope it works out that way. I really do. I think it's important for my longevity. I think it's good for our team. I think it's good for our players. And I think it's time. Okay? All right, thanks.